So see, till 23rd, so see, 23rd shloka we find. So this was the symptom of the Nishkam Karimogi. And Krishna told it how Yagyaya Acharatah Karma. That one should perform one's work as a Yagya. Yagyaya Acharatah Karma. That one should perform one's activities as a Yagya. So yesterday one question has come about Yagya. So some good churning has happened. I will discuss this once some more duties come. Okay, so Krishna told that do the Yagya. To the Arjuna that you do Yagya. Now, which type of Yagya should be done? So then it is being told that how the Yagya should be done in a spiritual consciousness. If the Yagya is done in the spiritual consciousness with a spiritual goal, then one will get the spiritual result of that Yagya. This was a shloka number 24. That sacrifice should be done with a spiritual consciousness for a spiritual goal, then it will lead to a spiritual goal. This was 24th shloka. And then Krishna started describing about the different types of the yagyas which are done, So there are the different types of religious activities which we get to see around. Right? So first Krishna told about that how those who are karma yogis, they do the worship of the demigods, the worship of the devtas. So this is a yagya. Worshipping of the devtas is a yagya. Similarly, those who are desiring impersonal liberation, so they are also doing the yagya of merging their souls with the Brahma Jyoti. So that is a yagya for the Jnana yogis or those who desire for impersonal liberation. And then Krishna told about that how those who are Naistik brahmacharis or pure brahmacharis, they sacrifice the activities of their senses in the fire of the mind control. And similarly, those who are regulated householders or the grahasthas, so they also sacrifice the sense objects in the senses. So basically, they go for regulated sense gratification. That way, it is a sacrifice for them. And then also, 27 shloka, those who are the practitioners of the Gyan Yoga again. 27 shloka is also, and those are the practitioners of the Gyan Yoga, and who practices who take to the practice of the Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga involves what? Ashtanga Yoga involves this pranayam. So, so those who perform this pranayam and all, the Ashtanga Yoga, so they are also doing a sacrifice. And what is the sacrifice? They offer the functions of the senses and the prana vayu. We say pranayam. Pranayam is what? And that prana vayu. Now there's a circulation of the vayus in our body. So pranayam is a process of controlling that. Prana is particular vayu which is associated with our respiration. So these people, those who are following the Gyan Yoga and who take to the practice of the Ashtanga Yoga, so they are also doing the yagya. How? By control of their senses, by control of their pran vayus, through the controlled mind. So this was shloka number 27. There are 5 types of the different vayus. Okay, some details are there. And now we have to go ahead with shloka number 28. So yesterday one devotee has asked one good question about how this karmi, for a karmi yogi to worship the devtas, how it is a sacrifice. It was a good question, and it's very important to understand one important thing, which I didn't told you earlier, but which will come now in today's talk. So see, when we say yagya, see generally, what do we understand by a yagya? We think that yagya means something or an activity which is done for the satisfaction of the supreme. Now, for the satisfaction of the absolute truth, that is called as a yagya. Right? But this definition is the highest definition of a yagya. Right now, that. But in general, when we say yagya means a sacrifice. So, it basically means an activity which is being performed for achievement of a certain goal. Now, what is a yagya or what is a sacrifice? Sacrifice is basically an activity which is done to achieve a certain goal, and which may involve some curtailment of our sense gratification. Now, it may be why it is called as a sacrifice, because one sacrifices some of his sense gratification for some other goal, So that is called as a yagya. Okay, any activity, right? For example, like you are giving charity to some people. or you are educating some poor children. That is also a form of sacrifice. Why? Because you are giving your time, energy, which you could have used for sense gratification for this purpose. Now you may not have the consciousness that okay, I'm doing it for the satisfaction of the supreme, right? That may not be there, है ना? So then still it will be called as the yajna. Yajna means an activity which is performed for a certain purpose, and where there's some sort of sacrifice is there, where there is some sort of the sacrifice from your side in terms of your sense gratification. That is a broad definition of the yajna. Okay, so now the yajna, this is the broad definition of the yajna. Now, now when the yajna is done with spiritual consciousness, which means what? One is having the knowledge that okay, there's a supreme, there's absolute, and I should work for satisfaction of the absolute, the supreme. Then that will be called as a gyan yajna. That the yajna which is done with knowledge, or the yajna which is done for achievement of the knowledge, that will be called as a gyan yajna. And when some yajna is done or sacrifice is done, but without this spiritual knowledge, and when there's only material consciousness involved, like for example, like you want to feed the poor children because you think it is a good activity, है ना? So then it is simply a yajna with material consciousness. So yajna, which is done with the material consciousness, will only give you some material benefits. For example, like you are giving a charity. Why you are giving a charity? Because you feel that it is a good thing. No, there are poor people. If somebody is capable, one should give some charity so that people can be helped. So it's a material consciousness. So what will happen is you will get some material results. You will get some pious credits, and you may again you may have to be into the material world only. So, but if you do that, even if you're doing a charity, but your consciousness is what? That okay, I'm doing it for the satisfaction of the supreme, है ना? So then what will happen? That activity will no more become material. That yajna will be a jnana yajna. And that will be a yajna which is done with a spiritual understanding. So this is one important thing to understand. Na? So so see, this is a broad definition of the yajna, right? Like somebody desires to serve the nation. Then it is also one form of sacrifice, because for serving the nation, one will also have to give up many of his sense gratificatory activities, right? So any activity where you get rid of your, where you get rid of some to some extent of your bodily desires, of your sense gratificatory desires, no, and you do it for a higher purpose, any higher purpose. It can be for the nation and for the poor people or for the old people, right, etc. So any activity where you are sacrificing some sense gratification, some bodily gratification for some achievement of some purpose, that will be called as a yajna. And see, all these things, these kind of activities will help you to awaken the knowledge in you, right? So how it helps you? Like suppose you want to do service for the nation, then immediately you see, to some extent you are getting out of the bodily conception of life. That is called as the jnana. So when you do a sacrifice, then what happens? There is an increase in your jnana. Jnana means what? There is an increase in the spiritual knowledge. Right? So spiritually, see, we are the soul. Now we have nothing to do with the bodily sense gratification. Now we have nothing to do with the bodily conception. But so when you do sacrifice, then you are awakened in knowledge. That's the point. Because the very act of sacrifice will lead you to the knowledge. That's how a karma yogi is acting. So because he's acting and he's giving the results of his fruits to the supreme, then what happens? He becomes detached. He's becoming detached from the results, and he is getting more deeper in his understanding that how, I am a soul. I am not this material body. This material world things are temporary. So this is the principle involved. So again, just to summarize, yajna in a broader way means what? Any activity where there is a sacrifice, where we sacrifice some bodily sense gratification for some purpose. This is the broad definition of yajna. And now the yajnas can be of two types. One thing is the yajna which is done with a material consciousness. That there's a sacrifice involved, but your consciousness is only limited to some material goals. Right? For example, like serving the nation, serving the parents, serving the old people, serving the poor people. Right? So that will also be called as a material yajna. And then there can be a yajna which is performed with knowledge, with some spiritual knowledge. So then that will give you liberation. So now with this definition now, see, even if somebody is performing karma kanda, Right? Karma kind people also do the yajna, right? That is also a form of sacrifice. It is also yajna. Why it is yajna? Because one recognize that there are some, demigods, and how my happiness is dependent upon them. And for the pleasure of those demigods, one is ready to accumulate some ingredients like that. So he's giving his time, he's giving his energy, he's putting his faith upon the demigods. That's also a form of sacrifice, na? So that is the thing. So I think who कल कौन थे वो डिवोटी जिसने पूछा था ये क्वेश्चन? Devotee has asked this, na?
Kranti Dev Prabhu.
हाँ, is he there?
Yes, Pradeep.
Yeah. Does it make sense now to you, Prabhu?
Yes, Pradeep.
So even your karma yogi is performing some yagyas, some karma kandi yagyas, that will be a sacrifice, right? So that's the broader definition of the yagya, na? Clear, na? But now see, in the shloka number, this Brahma Arpanam, the shloka number 24, Krishna is recommending which type of yagya? In this shloka 20, this shloka number 23rd, 24th, see, Krishna is recommending what type of yagya one should do? One should do a yagya with spiritual consciousness. That is what Krishna is recommending here. Right? Because if somebody will perform yagya with spiritual consciousness, then one will be able to get spiritual goals. One will be able to attain spiritual goals, spiritual destination. So this is what Krishna is mentioning here. Adashko, you are telling something?
No, Pradeep.
Okay. So this is clear now. Yagya, the broad definition of the yagya and the types of the yagyas. This will come today again in some further purpose. But it was a good question that you asked. So let us move ahead now. So we were into this section where Sandeepu, yeah, please ask what do you want to ask.
जी इसमें जैसे आया अभी आप बता रहे हैं कि यज्ञ और आप चैरिटी लगभग सिमिलर बता रहे थे। तो जी इसमें मुझे डाउट हो रहा था कि यज्ञ एंड चैरिटी सेम है कि डिफरेंस है। आप चैरिटी और कुछ बता रहे सेक्रीफाइस, तो वो कुछ ऑस्टेरिटी की तरह भी हो गया। तो इन तीनों में डिफरेंस क्या है?
हाँ, देखो, यज्ञ का मतलब क्या है अगेन? यज्ञ मीन्स कि जहाँ पे आप यज्ञ मीन्स व्हाट? हरी बोल, म्यूट करना पड़ेगा ड्यूटीज को अपना। यज्ञ मीन्स व्हाट? some activity some activity which is done for achievement of some purpose, and where there is some sort of inconvenience taken, or some sort of giving up one's sense gratification is involved. Okay. So now regarding charity, one is giving one's money. For earning the money, one has to work hard, right? So it is also one form of sacrifice. Okay, the charity is also one form of sacrifice, like doing tapasya. Somebody is somebody is going to the Himalayas and not wearing much clothes and all, right? That austerity is also one kind of tapasya. That the tapasya is also one kind of sacrifice, because what? One is sacrificing one's comforts, right? So all these things, all these activities where one gives up some sense gratification for some other purpose, of some for achievement of some purpose, they will be all counted as a yajna. Is it okay?
ओके प्रभु जी।
Fine. Okay. So let us move ahead now. So after this, Krishna started describing about the different yagyas. So we discussed. Just a second. I'll show you this thing. So this is what we discussed. Krishna told about in the 25th shloka. Krishna told about that how the karma yogis, see, those who are nishkam karma yogis, they may also do some yagyas. The fire sacrifice, they may also do some fire sacrifices. That is called the little sacrifice. But they have no attachment to the fruits. And so basically, and those who are karma yogis, they are doing worship of the devtas. That is a sacrifice. That is a yagya done by them. Those who are jnana yogis, they offer their atma to the Brahma Jyoti. That is a sacrifice by them. Then those who are nashtik brahmacharis, they restrain their senses by the mind control. That is a yagya for them. Those who are regulated householders or grahasthas, they're called as the grahastha brahmacharis. No? So they also remain indifferent to the actions of the senses, right? Or basically they also do sense gratification in a regulated manner. That is a yagya for them. Then 27th shloka which we discussed again. Now those who are, again, see, this is another category of ज्ञान yogis only. देखिए जो ज्ञान योगी होते हैं ना, ज्ञान योगी मतलब कि those who desire to cultivate knowledge. So now, how do they what are the ways by which they can, or let us say, what is their practices what are the practices by which they may try to cultivate the knowledge? It can be different things, right? Like one of the things could be just study of the Vedanta, study of the scriptures. Right? This is the most common thing for the Jnana Yogis, that going for the study of the Shastras, the Vedanta. And that is one of the practices. Another practice could be Ashtanga Yoga. Right? The Jnana Yogis only, some of them, they may want to go for Ashtanga Yoga. And for what purpose? But for the purpose of achieving the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. Not that all the Ashtanga Yogis are focused upon getting Paramatma. No, no. So Ashtanga Yoga is a practice. The Ashtanga Yoga, and Pratyahar, and जो भी 8 steps होते हैं, so it's a practice. Even some Jnana Yogis will also take to bhakti, activities of bhakti, like uh, many impersonalists, they also worship Krishna or Ram, but what is their understanding? That ultimately, they are all Brahma Jyoti, and the goal of life is to merge into the Brahma Jyoti. Okay, so just point is कि जो ज्ञान योगीज होते हैं, they also may take to different practices, तो यहाँ पे कौन से ज्ञान योगी की बात की जा रही है 27 श्लोका में? That ज्ञान योगी which take to the practice of restraining the senses and controlling one's pran vayus. So one can control the pran vayu. See, the purpose is what? ना, लाइक जो अष्टांग योगा होता है, अष्टांग योगा में क्या करता है व्यक्ति, ये सब चीजें, कंट्रोल ऑफ द ब्रेथ इज इन्वॉल्व. पर्पस क्या है बेसिकली? द माइंड विच इज करेंटली फोकस्ड इन सो मेनी एस्पेक्ट्स, द पर्पस इज टू विदड्रॉ इट. The purpose is to withdraw the consciousness within. One wants to, because currently the consciousness and the mind is distracted in so many ways, because of the sensual activities and all. So the purpose of the Ashtanga Yoga is what? One tries to restrain the senses, and ultimately one tries to withdraw the consciousness, within, on one own self. That is the purpose. So for the Jnana Yogi, the practice is this, okay. Now I think we have to go to shloka number 28. So say 28, Krishna is now going to speak about how there are Karma Yogis, Jnana Yogis, and Ashtanga Yogis, how they also take to different vows. So this is how they sacrifice. And 29 shloka, Krishna is going to again speak about the controlling of the breath, again performance of the pranayam, and controlling of the eating, right? How there are also different ways of sacrifices, So let us come to shloka number 28, where we left yesterday. Okay, so this is shloka number 28. Yavyagya tapo yagya yoga yagya tatha pare swadhyaya jnana yagyascha yatayah samshita vratah. Samshita vratah means taken to the strict vows. So, see, these different people, they also take to these strict vows. So they're taking the strict vows is also a part of yagya, right? So see, what are the yagyas? One is dravya yagya. Dravya means what? Sacrificing one's possessions. So, so giving one's possessions, right? For example, like giving one's wealth or giving one's land. So they will all be categorized as the dravya yagya, where a person gives one's possessions. Then there's a tapo yagya. Tapo yagya means what? Tapasya, austerities. So one may perform different varieties of the tapasyas, and that is also a form of the yagya. Like eating less, sleeping less, or staying in a very cold weather. All these are different tapasyas, And then there is yoga yagyas, right? The yoga here refers to the Ashtanga yoga. One may take to the practice of the Ashtanga yoga. So all these different yagyas are there. Or another is Swadhyaya Jnana Yagyas. Right? Swadhyaya means what? Study of the Vedas. For what purpose? For the Jnana, for the purpose of getting the knowledge. So one may also take to the vow of studying the Shastras or the Vedas for cultivation of the knowledge. So these are also these are also different types of the yagyas. Okay, having accepted the strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing the severe austerities, by practicing the yoga of the Eightfold Mysticism, or by studying the Vedas to advance in the transcendental knowledge. Okay, so if you Purport Prabhupada is explaining them very elaborately. Just read this blue part.
There are persons who are sacrificing
their possessions in the form of various kinds of charities.
In India, the rich mercantile community or princely orders open various kinds of charitable institutions like Dharmashala, Annakshetra, Athitishala, Anathalaya, and Vidyapeeth. In other countries too, there are many hospitals, old age homes, and similar charitable foundations meant for distributing food, education, and medical treatment free to the poor. All these charitable activities are called Dravyamaya Yajna. These
Okay, so
are
this is called as a द्रव्य में यज्ञ, right? द्रव्य मतलब क्या होता है? मटर चीजें, राइट? तो हॉस्पिटल्स खोलना, ओल्ड एज होम्स खोलना, राइट? अब देखिए ये अपने आप स्पेशल एक्टिविटीज नहीं है, and they are also not when a person may be not doing it for the satisfaction of the supreme, but even materially, materially, because it is a sacrifice involved. So one can, instead of opening a hospital, one can open one, some more factories, some more, hotels for getting more money. But rather than going for it, one is making hospital. So that's a sacrifice in that way. So these are called as the different types of dravyamay yajna. So somebody, if he will do, he will also gain some knowledge, because he will also understand that how just having own fulfillment of own sensual desire is not everything. One should do something for the society. One should do something for the other people. Right? So one one is able to get out of the bodily conception of life, and one is able to experience some fulfillment. You see, the nature of the soul is what? The nature of the soul is to serve Krishna. Now, as long as we don't have knowledge of Krishna, as long as we don't have knowledge of this nature, so even materially also, when you do something selflessly, and when you do something for serving some other, you get some satisfaction. Why? Because that's our nature. We get full satisfaction when we serve Krishna selflessly. But as long as we don't come to this platform, even when we do some activities where we do some selflessness, some selflessness is involved, we will find some happiness and satisfaction. Why? Because that is close to our spiritual nature. That's the funda. That's the funda. So that's why many people are inspired, on their own. In every country, you will find there are some people who want to do these activities. So they are called as a Dravyamaya Yajna. Okay. Next, go ahead.
There are others who, for higher elevation in life or for promotion to higher planets within the universe, voluntarily accept many kinds of austerities such as Chandrayan and Chaturmasya. These processes entail severe vows for conducting life under certain rigid rules. For example, under the Chaturmasya vow, the candidate does not shave for 4 months during the year July to October. He does not eat certain foods, does not eat twice in a day, or does not leave home. Such sacrifice of the comforts of life is called tapomaya yajna. There are still others who engage themselves in different kinds of mystic yogas, like the Patanjali system for merging into the existence of the absolute, or Hatha yoga or Ashtanga yoga for particular perfections. And there are others who engage themselves in the studies of different Vedic literatures, specifically the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutras, or the Sankhya philosophy. All of these are called Swadhyaya Yajna, or engagement in the sacrifice of studies.
Okay, so this is about the Tapomaya Yajna and the Jnanmaya Yajna. Okay, fine. Go ahead. All these yogis are faithfully engaged in different types of sacrifice and are seeking a higher status of life. Krishna consciousness, however, is different from these because it is the direct service of the Supreme Lord. Krishna consciousness cannot be attained by any of the above mentioned type of sacrifice, but can be attained only by the mercy of the Lord and his bona fide devotees. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is transcendental. So Krishna consciousness means bhakti. So bhakti cannot be achieved by any of these kind of sacrifices. Bhakti is achieved only through bhakti. Bhaktaya sanjayate bhakti बताया गया है. Right? So if somebody is having devotional service, somebody is having bhakti, then only he can give bhakti to you. So all these things cannot give you bhakti. That's the point mentioned here. So Krishna consciousness is the highest. But these different yajnas are also the means. These are also different ways. One question is come. What is the question? That what is the destination of? What happened? There was one question, no? Is it removed or what? क्वेश्चन था ना, शायद किसी ने क्वेश्चन डाला था. Not able to see it. Cleared. ठीक है. Okay, next again, Krishna is speaking some about one more type of sacrifice. Apane juhvati pranam, prane apanam tatha pare, प्राणापानगतिरुद्ध्वा प्राणायाम परायणः अपरे नियतरः अपरे नियताहारः प्राणान् प्राणेषु जुह्वति। अपाने जुह्वति प्राणम प्राणे अपानम तथा परे प्राण अपान गति रुद्ध्वा प्राणायाम परायणः, राइट। प्राणायाम जो हम समझते हैं ना, प्राणायाम अनुलोम विलोम एंड ऑल, that is basically the purpose that is the way by which we control our breathing. So, as such, there are different kinds of our life airs within our body. The actual purpose of the pranayam, actual purpose of the pranayam is basically to control our life airs. So here is a mention about the process of the Ashtanga yoga, where one tries to control one's breathing, one's life airs. That is being mentioned here. Still others who are inclined to the process of the breath restraint to remain in the trance practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in the trance, stopping all the breathing. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. तो देखिए ये जो बताया गया है यहाँ पे, जो बताया जा रहा है, दिस इज अबाउट द अष्टांग योगा, दिस इज अबाउट द योगा, उसमें भी स्पेसिफिकली जिसमें कि ब्रेथ का कंट्रोल बहुत इन्वॉल्व रहता है ना। तो सी नाउ these are some technical details, restraining of what, the प्राण में अपान and अपान में प्राण, ना the process of breath restraint to remain in trance by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing. Right now, basically one can reverse, like how do we do? We take in air, then then we throw out the air. So there's a general way by which the pranavayus act, but by the practice of this yoga, one can reverse the way they act. One can reverse the direction in which they act. But see, the purpose is ultimately the purpose of all this control, the sensual control and the control of the life breath, is basically so as to withdraw one's mind and consciousness inwards, rather than outside material things. One wants to focus upon within. See, there are some technical details. Our acharyas, Prabhupada is also giving those details, I think. So we will just read it, but we don't have to bother much about these details, because it's not a yoga dharma now. This yoga is not for the, what is a yoga for the Kali Yuga is bhakti yoga, which we are doing. Please read the purport.
This system of yoga for controlling the breathing process is called pranayama. And in the beginning, it is practiced in the Hatha Yoga system through different sitting postures. All of these processes are recommended for controlling the senses and for advancement in spiritual realization. This practice involves controlling the airs within the body so as to reverse the direction of their passage. The apan air goes downward and the pran air goes up. The pranayam yogi practices breathing the opposite way until the currents are neutralized into puraka, equilibrium. Offering the exhaled breath into the inhaled breath is called rechak. When both air currents are completely stopped, one is said to be in the Kumbhaka Yoga. By practice of Kumbhaka Yoga, one can increase the duration of life for perfection in spiritual realization. The intelligent yogi is interested in attaining perfection in one life without waiting for the next. For by practicing Kumbhaka Yoga, the yogis increase the duration of life by many, many years. A Krishna conscious person, however, being always situated in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, automatically becomes the controller of the senses. His senses, being always engaged in the service of Krishna, have no chance of becoming otherwise engaged. So at the end of life, he is naturally transferred to the transcendental plane of Lord Krishna. Consequently, he makes no attempt to increase his longevity. He is at once raised to the platform of liberation, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam chaya yoga vicharena bhakti yogena sevita sagunan samiti tedan Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpati. One who engages in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord transcends the modes of material nature and is immediately elevated to the spiritual platform. A Krishna conscious person begins from the transcendental stage and he is constantly in that consciousness. Therefore, there is no falling down, and ultimately he enters into the abode of Lord without delay. The practice of reduced eating is automatically done when one eats only Krishna Prasadam or food which is offered first to the Lord. Reducing the eating process is very helpful in the matter of sense control, and without sense control, there is no possibility of getting out of the material entanglement.
Okay, fine. So, anyways, Prabhupada is also focusing upon Krishna consciousness, right? So, even if you don't understand these details, you will have to no need to be worried about this Kumbhak Yoga and Rechaka and Puraka, right? Basically, these are the components of the Ashtanga Yoga system, which was which was of very much use earlier, but now we don't require all these things much, But these are the part of the Ashtanga Yoga. So that is also a way of the sacrifice, because one is controlling one's life breath and one is controlling one's senses. Right? But Prabhupada is mentioning that how if somebody will focus upon Krishna consciousness, then everything will be achieved. There is no need of any other process. Okay. So Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan has also explained about it little more. If you want, you can read this afterwards. Okay. So till now, so Krishna described about different types of the yagyas, which different kinds of the people do. The karma yogis and the gyan yogis and the stang yogis. Okay. Now, shloka number 30 to 33. Now Krishna is going to explain about what is the purpose of all these sacrifices. What is the purpose? What do one achieves by doing all these sacrifices? So beginning with that, first 30th shloka, he is describing about now what is the broad principle of the yajna. Sarve api ete yajnavido yajnashapita kalmasha yajnashishtamrita bhujo yanti brahma sanatanam. See, sarve api ete yajnavido yajnashapita kalmasha. Right? So what happens when somebody will do these yajnas? What will happen? He's telling those are yajna vidos, means those who know the yajnas, those who know the purpose of the yajnas. No, yajna shapit kalmasha. See, yajna shapit means they are cleansed as a result of such performance of kalmasha, sinful reactions. What is the gain? When these people perform the yajna, then what happens is they become freed from all kinds of sinful reactions, and also they they don't perform anymore. They don't accumulate further karmas. So this is one gain which happens, that those who perform these yagyas, they get freed from all kinds of sinful reactions. And also what happens is yagya sishta amrita bhujo. Na, yagya system is the result of such performance of yagya is amrita bhuja. Na, so they are able to experience bliss. They are able to experience happiness, nectar, amrita. Those who perform the yagyas, they will be able to experience some happiness, some bliss. And ultimately, yanti brahma sanatanam. And ultimately, they will be able to approach the eternal sky, eternal atmosphere, Brahman. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of the sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of the sacrifices, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. So this will happen. See here one important thing is, essentially Krishna is telling that how those who are doing the yagyas, they will get these two results. They will have purification. They will have purification of their mind, purification of their desires, and ultimately they will be able to move towards the liberation. But see now, how, with what rate and to what degree they will be, at what rate and to what degree they will be able to have these two goals, the goals of purification, liberation, that will vary based upon the type of the yagyas. Right? किस टाइप का यज्ञ कर रहे हैं उसके हिसाब से डिपेंड करेगा कि उनका कितना प्यूरिफिकेशन होगा और कितना वो लिबरेशन के पास से मूव करेंगे. Right? For example, like somebody is a karmakandi. He's just doing a yagya for getting some material benefits. It's going to take him a very long time to become purified and liberated. Somebody is doing Ashtanga yoga. Somebody is becoming Nishkam Karma yogi. He will get more quickly elevated to the liberation. Right? This is the important thing to understand here. But ultimately, in a broader sense, now all people who are performing these yagyas, they are moving closer to the purification and liberation. This is what Krishna is mentioning about this. How they are becoming freed from the sinful reactions and they are moving towards the liberation. And they've also experienced some happiness. They will experience some bliss. So yeah, please read this purport.
From the
Pado.
From the foregoing explanation of different type of sacrifice, namely sacrifice of one's position, study of Vedas or philosophical doctrines, and performance of the yoga system, it is found that the common aim of all is to control the senses. Sense gratification is the root cause of material existence. Therefore, unless and until one is situated on a platform apart from sense gratification, there is no chance of being elevated to the eternal platform of full knowledge, full bliss, and full life. This platform is in the eternal atmosphere or Brahman atmosphere. All the above mentioned sacrifices help one to become cleansed of the sinful reactions of material existence. By this advancement in the life, not only does one become happy and opulent in this life, but also at the end he enters into the eternal kingdom of God, either merging into the impersonal Brahman or associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna.
Yeah. This is what one gains. Okay. For the next shloka again. Again. Nayam lokosti ayagyasya koto anya kuru sattama. Krishna is mentioning further benefit of yagya. What is saying? Krishna is telling very important thing. Na ayam loko asti ayagyasya kuto anya kuru sattama. Right? If one does not perform yagya, then even in this loka one will not get happiness. What to speak of the other? What to speak of the other lokas? What to speak of even in this life one will not be able to become happy if one will not perform the yagya. Now, what to speak of after this life? O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? No. इस life में भी व्यक्ति happy नहीं रह सकता. Please read the purport.
Whatever form of material existence one is in, one is invariably ignorant of its real situation. In other words, existence in the material world is due to the multiple reaction to our sinful lives. Ignorance is the cause of sinful life, and a sinful life is the cause of us dragging on in a material existence. The human form of life is the only loophole by which one may get out of its entanglement. The Vedas therefore give us a chance for escape by pointing out the path of religion, economic comfort, regulated sense gratification, and at last, the means to get out of the miserable condition entirely. The path of religion or the different kind of sacrifice recommended above automatically solves our economic problems. By performance of yagna, we can have enough food, enough milk, etc. Even if there is so-called increase of population, when the body is fully supplied, naturally the next stage to satisfy the senses. The Vedas prescribe, therefore, sacred marriage for regulated sense gratification. Thereby, one is gradually elevated to the platform of release from material bondage, and the highest perfection of liberated life is to associate with the Supreme Lord. Perfection is achieved by performance of yagna, sacrifice, as described above. Now, if a person is not inclined to perform yagna according to the Vedas, how can he accept a happy life even in this body? What to speak of another body or another planet? Different grades of material comforts to different heavenly planets, and all in all cases there is immense happiness for a person engaged in different kind of yagna. But the highest kind of happiness that a man can achieve is to be promoted to the spiritual planet by practice of Krishna consciousness. Alive Krishna consciousness is therefore the solution to all problems of a material existence.
Yeah. So if one will not do sacrifice, one will not one will not be able to have any happiness in this world. You see, in the modern times we can see people are just selfishly oriented. People are just worried about their own enjoyment, and they try different means to become happy, enjoy, seeing movies, going for intoxication, going for illicit sex, so many things. But you'll find in spite of that, there's no real happiness, there's no inner joy. Rather, to fulfill the hollowness which is there within the heart, people have to take to all these different things, whether it is intoxication or gambling or whatever different means are there, because there's a hollowness within. You see, the soul has the experience of spiritual happiness, which comes by loving and serving Krishna. The soul is looking for this thing that can only give one fulfillment. And now see, in this world, what we are trying, what do we have? We have some enjoyment for the body, or we have some things which can give enjoyment to our minds or intelligence or egos. But see, because the soul has experience of spiritual happiness earlier, that's why the soul is longing for that. That's why none of these experiences are able to give fulfillment to the soul. And that's why you'll find people are trying so many different things. There's always a hollowness. That's why there's a need of so many varieties of the movies. One after another, there are so many varieties of movies, so many varieties of fashions, so many varieties of clothing, right? Because everyone is trying more and more and more. But the thing is, the inner hollowness does not go away. Because that will go away only when we do yajna. When one acts as a yajna, as a sacrifice, then one will be able to have some satisfaction. Why? Because one moves closer to one's nature as a soul. So, so see, even at matter level, we find when people do some sacrifice. See, one thing is just living for own sake, for own sense gratification. Now, beyond this is when one starts becoming little selfless. For example, like one starts working for one's nation, or one starts thinking for some poor people in the society, when a person starts thinking about them and does some activity for them, like it's a sacrifice, you'll find that people feel some fulfillment. And like, for example, like Mother Teresa, we know, she served so many poor and other people. So she was feeling satisfaction out of that, right? Because she has moved closer to her soul's nature. But see, even she, Mother Teresa, towards the end of her life, she wrote to Pope. She wrote to the Pope that, I tried to spend my whole life for serving the poor and sacrificing my own comforts and desires, but still I'm not finding a complete inner joy and fulfillment. I'm not able to understand that why it is so. You know. So of course, Pope was also not having any answer to this, because the thing is, because she was also doing on a material platform the things. The ultimate joy and happiness will come. Sabai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti adoshaje ahetukya pratiyata yayatma supasidati. If you want to experience the highest joy, the highest fulfillment, then one has to do directly the yagya for Krishna, directly do bhakti to Krishna. Right? Bhakti is also yagya, very important. But the thing is that if there's no sacrifice involved, then one may try to enjoy in different ways. One will be able to have only holiness in one's life. But if somebody sacrifices for some higher cause, one finds some happiness, some fulfillment, some meaning in one's life. And that's why we find even there are so many people who want to be social workers. There are so many people who want to be patriots, right? Because there is some fulfillment, there's some feeling of satisfaction which comes by having some sacrifice. So this is what Krishna is telling, that how if somebody will not do any sacrifice, he will not have any happiness. Even in this life, what to speak of the next life. Okay. Now next shloka. So now again Krishna is describing how the different types of there are different types of yagyas which are being given. Evam bahu vidha yagya tata brahmano mukhe karma jan vidhitan sarvan evam gyatva vimokshase. So see, evam bahu vidha yagya, right? These are the different types of the yagya. Vidhita brahmano mukhe. Brahmano here means from the Vedas. So these are the different types of the yagyas coming from the Vedas. Mukhe means what? Coming, coming from the Vedas here. And karma jan vidhi tan sarvan. Right? All these yagyas, they are including what? They're including some sort of activities. It's not that they are not including any activities. No, all these yagyas are involving some activities, right? Like for a karma yogi, if you're doing a karma kandi yagya, that requires some activity. If somebody is doing impersonal yagya, that also requires some activities. Somebody is doing swadhyay, that's an activity. So Krishna is saying that how, see, Arjun may be thinking that, okay, you are telling me to do yagya, so which means what? I have to go to the forest and just do some fire sacrifice. Uh, why you're telling me to fight in the battlefield? But Krishna is telling that, no, see, you have to do a yagya, and yagya means it involves the activities. So your fighting in this battlefield is also going to be a yagya. It is also a proper yagya. Evam gyatva vimokshase. And those who know this, they can get the moksha. All these different types of sacrifices are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of the different types of work. Right? So the yagyas are involving some work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. Right? So if you understand about them, if you act out of them, then you will also be able to attain the liberation. That is what Krishna is mentioning here. Is it the purpose?
Different types of sacrifice, as discussed above, are mentioned in the Vedas to shoot the different types of worker, because men are so deeply absorbed in the bodily concept These sacrifices are so arranged that one can work either with the body, with the mind, or with the intelligence, but all of them are recommended for ultimately bringing about liberation from the body. This is confirmed by the Lord here with from his own mouth.
So these are different types of the yagyas where one performs activities, by what? Activities to the mind or to the body or with the intelligence. Like for those are Gyan yogis, right? So they are trying to the Gyan yogis, they try to accumulate knowledge about the supreme. So they are using activities more on the level of the intelligence. Right? Those who are karma yogis, they are using more of at the level of the bodies, at the level of the senses. Right? Like that. So based upon the different types of the practitioners, there are different types of yagyas which involve different activities for the body, mind, and the intelligence, right? Like in the bhakti yoga also, we also have different activities. Some activities are pertaining to the body, some activities are pertaining to the mind, and some are to the intelligence. Like right now, what we are doing is the study of the shastras that pertains to the intelligence. It's an activity for the intelligence, right? Or you go and worship the deities. It's an activity where your body and mind is involved. So Krishna is mentioning that how these are different yagyas, okay? And uh, now what will be the end result of the yagya? That again Krishna is again mentioning, Now, out of all these yagyas, which yagya is the best, and what one will get out of that yagya? That is Krishna is mentioning next shloka. Shreyan dravyamaya yagya jnana yagya parantapa sarvam karma khilam partha jnane parisam samap samapyate. Shreyan dravyamaya yagya jnana yagya parantapa. O Arjuna, O Parantapa, है ना? The Dravya Yagyas are Shreya. Shreya means better than sorry, Gyan Yagya is Shreyan than Dravya Yagya. So the Yagyas which are the Yagyas which are done with knowledge, or the Yagyas which are meant for getting higher knowledge, spiritual knowledge, they are better than the Dravya Yagyas. Dravya Yagyas means the Yagyas where simply one is giving one's possessions or Dravya. So that is telling, the yagya which is performed for cultivation of the knowledge is better than mere giving up the possessions. That is what Krishna is mentioning. And sarvam karma khilam partha jnane samapyate. See, O chastiser of the enemy, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than mere sacrifice of the material possessions. Right? So knowledge में किया गया यज्ञ, नॉलेज में किया गया सेक्रीफाइस बेटर है देन सिंपल सेक्रीफाइस ऑफ द मटेरियल पोजेशंस, राइट? क्या इसका मतलब? जैसे सपोज like somebody is just giving charity, one feels good that okay, one should let it is better to give some charity to the poor people, so one is simply giving charity to the poor people, okay? So this is also one yagya, that is dravya yagya. One is giving one's wealth to the poor people. No, but better than that is what, if one gives this charity with knowledge, okay? One understands that okay, these are the people who are suffering, they're also souls, and by giving and if I give them money, they can fulfill their material needs, and and they can also try to take some means by which they can come to the supreme. So one is doing this in knowledge, that okay, I am a soul and I'm meant to serve the supreme, and let me try to contribute some of my money to the people. If somebody is having this knowledge, with this knowledge, if somebody is doing it, then what happens? He will get a spiritual benefit out of it. But if somebody is simply doing for material activity, then he will get only material benefit. If you're giving money out of charity, okay, it's a pious credit. You get some punya, and next life you will not have any scarcity of the money and all. So Krishna is recommending which type of sacrifice? Those sacrifice which is being done with knowledge, or those sacrifices where which involves cultivation of the knowledge. So Krishna is recommending more of them, or that is being, after all, O son of Pritha, all the sacrifices of the work culminate in the transcendental knowledge. Jnane parisamapyate. Ultimately, all the sacrifices are meant to help us awaken what? Awaken the knowledge. What knowledge? The spiritual knowledge. That how we are not the bodies, we are the souls, and how there is a supreme for whom we should work. This is the knowledge. That is the transcendental knowledge. So the purpose of all the yagyas is ultimately to help us, awake, to help us come to this knowledge that we are not the bodies, we are the atmas, and we are meant to serve the supreme. This is the knowledge. So all these yagyas will help us to come to this knowledge, eventually. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Prabhuji,
Yes,
like this yajna definition you have told, Prabhuji, like any
uh,
any sacrifice we do,
activity. Any
any
activity. Yeah.
activity we do.
Yes.
But Prabhuji, here it's written ki all the different type of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas. So the activities which we are doing, if that is not approved by Vedas, if that are not written in Vedas, so can we call them see that austerity or that activity as yajna? Like suppose that to the one drunkard person is there, he is
Hmm.
like one intoxicated person is there, he is having addiction of drugs, so he
Hmm.
is dying for drugs. So some another person, his friend, and his hard earned money he has given them to for taking drugs. So this is one type of sacrifice he is doing. So can we call this yajna? Because this thing is not.
This
This
thing
is
is
also
not
one type
approved.
of sacrifice.
This is not approved by the Vedas, you're telling, right?
Yes, please.
Of course, Krishna is telling here that see, all these yagyas which I have described to you, they are approved by the Vedas. है ना? Now, regarding some broader vision, broader understanding of the yagya you are telling, those which are not mentioned in the Vedas, तो आपने क्या example दिया फिर से जरा बताओ?
Suppose any drug addict person is there,
Hmm.
he's suffering like he needs drugs. Correct.
Hmm.
His
Hmm.
one of his friend is there.
Hmm.
So he is like when he has seen his situation, like he felt pity on him. So he has
Hmm.
given his hard earned money to him to take drugs.
Hmm.
This is also one type of sacrifice. If we say in that term, कि any activities if we do for sacrifice.
हाँ. See, देखो, from the on the part of the person, na, if you see on the part of the person, it is a sacrifice, no, because he is sacrificing his wealth. Now, now, now his sacrifice, what he's giving is basically used by the other person for wrong purpose. So see, so it will be called as a sacrifice in the mode of ignorance. See, the sacrifice can be in the mode of goodness, sacrifice in the mode of passion, and sacrifice in the mode of ignorance. Yes, it is also a form of sacrifice, but it is a sacrifice in the mode of ignorance because one is doing sacrifice ignorantly, in ignorance, without the knowledge. So that may be there. So now regarding approved by the Vedas and all, I think I can think about it more. Tomorrow, next time when we'll meet, we'll discuss about it.
So again, to the one point comes like you have told yajna. When we
हाँ.
do any yajna, so these two things happens. First thing is purification.
Hmm.
Purification. Second thing is liberation. So
हाँ.
if any person is doing, you have told ki this type of activity he will do, so this will
Hmm.
come in under ignorance. So by doing
Hmm.
this type of yajna, the yajna which he is doing is ignorance, will he get any purification and liberation?
I think will need to think about it more. है ना? Next time we'll meet, we'll discuss about this.
Yes.
At least at this point, let us see whatever sacrifices Krishna has described till now. At least we saw that about it. Krishna mentioned about the worship of the devtas, the performance of the Ashtanga yoga, and even giving of the this dravya yagyas, giving of the positions. At least these are approved by the Vedas. So I think about this we can talk. And regarding other things, I think I can think about it more. Next time when I will it, I will tell about you. Okay?
Thank you.
Fine. So where were we? हाँ. Yes, we have to read the purport here, right? No? I think with this purport, please read 4.33 purport.
The purpose of all sacrifices is to arrive at the status of complete knowledge, then to gain release from material miseries, and ultimately to engage in loving transcendental service to the Supreme Lord Krishna consciousness. Sacrifices sometimes take different forms according to the particular faith of the performer. When one's faith reaches the stage of transcendental knowledge, the performer of sacrifice should be considered more advanced than those who simply sacrifice material possessions without such knowledge. Without attainment of knowledge, sacrifices remain on the material platform and bestow no spiritual benefit.
This is the point mentioned here. And it depends upon the faith of the performer or the understanding of the performer. So when one is acting on the spiritual knowledge, okay, that one has come to the platform that okay, I'm not the body, no, I'm a soul, and okay, ultimately these are material things. I can give it to help some other people. So the performance of sacrifice should be considered more advanced. So if somebody is having spiritual knowledge and he's doing a yagya with spiritual knowledge, then he will be considered more better than those people who are doing it in ignorance, without such knowledge, who simply sacrifice material positions without such knowledge. For without attainment of the knowledge, sacrifices remains on the material platform and bestow no spiritual benefit. Right? We discussed in the beginning also, right? Yagyas, it can be done in the material consciousness or it can be done in the spiritual consciousness. Spiritual consciousness means with some spiritual knowledge. If it is done with some spiritual knowledge, then what will happen? It is more better than simply yagyas without any spiritual knowledge. Okay, go ahead. Without the elevation of
Without the elevation of knowledge, sacrifices are simply material activities. When, however, they are elevated to the level of transcendental knowledge, all such activities enter into the spiritual platform. Depending on difference in consciousness, sacrificial activities are sometimes called karma kanda, fruity activities, and sometimes gyan kanda, knowledge in the pursuit of truth. It is better when the end is knowledge.
Yeah. So without the elevation of knowledge, sacrifices are simply material activities. Okay. When, however, they're elevated to the level of transcendental knowledge, all such activities enter onto the spiritual platform. I think आपने जो क्वेश्चन पूछा ना उसका आंसर कुछ यहाँ पे देखो इसमें आ रहा है. Without the elevation of knowledge, sacrifices are simply material activities. So yes, one may do some sacrifices which are not told in the shastras, or which may be done in the ignorance, without knowledge. So so point is sacrifice can be done in ignorance also. One may be doing some sacrifice, like for example, like somebody wants to do something for the nation. Like, we were having freedom fighters. They wanted to work for the freedom of the nation, right? Now, if you see, it is also yagya, but it is a yagya born out of ignorance. Because how it is ignorance? Because it is the bodily conception of life. Ultimately, no one is Indian, no one is, uh, so it is also a sacrifice. Uh, it is also a sacrifice done, but it is performed without knowledge, without spiritual knowledge, in ignorance, right? So then what will happen? There will be no elevation of the knowledge. Then there will be no elevation of the knowledge. I think the answer is coming here, of your question, Okay, if somebody is doing some sacrifice, but it is not based upon the knowledge, or it is not approved by the shastras, then what will happen? Then one will have no elevation of the knowledge. But if somebody will do the proper yagyas given in the shastras, with some knowledge, then there will be enhancement of the knowledge. However, however they are elevated to the level of transcendental knowledge, all such activities enter under this. So depending on the differences in the consciousness, sacrificial activities are sometimes called karma kanda and sometimes called as a gyan kanda. It is better when the end is the knowledge. Okay, so yeah, what you're asking, this is also there too, right? That one may do yagya, one may be doing sacrifice, but if it is done out of ignorance without proper knowledge, then it will not lead to increase of the knowledge. But the yagya which is done as per approved by the shastras and with some knowledge, that will lead to the enhancement of the knowledge. This is also there.
Only one thing, one concern only I was having, that yagya definition you have told, Pradeep.
Yes.
So in that means only that activity we can say yagya which are given in Vedas. The activity which are not in given.
Here it is, without the elevation of knowledge, sacrifices are simply material activities. Right? So, okay, you are telling, okay, your question is that we can say only those activities in the yagya which are given in the shastras. Like that you are telling?
Yes, Pradeep.
Okay.
Because the example which I was given, it's not given in Shastra. That type of things not recommended in Shastra. So that's we can't call it.
I think it looks like that, because see, before that we read this Dravyamaya Yagya. So it is being mentioned about giving charity and feeding to the poor people. Yeah, I think that may also happen, because there's a broader definition of the Yagya given the Shastra itself, because Shastra recommends
Charity.
about Shastra speaks about the charity. The Shastra speaks about fighting for the nation, fighting for the protection. Kshatriyas are supposed to fight for the protection of the people. So I think about this I will clear you next time. We'll think about it a little more. Okay.
Yes, please.
So, anyways, but this point is clear to all of us right now, that the sacrifice should be performed with knowledge that is being considered better than the simply sacrifice of the material possession. That is what Krishna is recommending here. Okay. And ultimately, the yagya should be able to help one raise in one's spiritual knowledge. So that is more worthier. That is what Krishna is speaking here. I think time to ho gaya. So I think the next section is, I think next week we will be able to complete this chapter. We have some more shlokas, some 6 and more shlokas. Let us let us stop here. Any question is there, we can answer that. About this yagya, I think I can clear, I will clear it more, है ना, next time. Chat box में कुछ आया है क्या? Okay, attendance. ठीक है. Any questions? प्रभुपाद की जय. So next weekend we'll